For decades, fans believed Annie's song was the ultimate love letter, an emotional tribute to the woman who inspired John Denver's most iconic ballad. But what if it wasn't written in a moment of joy, but in the aftermath of a fight? And what if the woman behind the song, Annie Denver, held on to a secret for nearly 50 years? In a rare and emotional interview in 2022, Annie, now 78, finally spoke publicly about her marriage to John Denver, their painful divorce, and the untold truth behind the music that defined a generation. It wasn't just a story of love, it was one of heartbreak, silence, fame, and a surprising act of rage involving a chainsaw. Annie's song has long been hailed as one of America's most heartfelt love songs, haunting, tender, and poetic. Written in 1974, it was widely believed to be born out of pure passion for John Denver's first wife, Annie Martell. But according to Annie herself, the truth is far more complicated. During her 2022 appearance on the Mobituaries podcast, Annie revealed that the song was actually written after a painful argument, not during a romantic honeymoon, but following a tense moment that nearly broke them. John had stormed out of the house and gone skiing alone in Aspen, Colorado. As he rode the Ajax ski lift in silence, reflecting on their fight, the melody suddenly came to him. He rushed home, still in his ski clothes, and within 10 minutes, the song poured out. It wasn't planned. It wasn't polished. It was raw, immediate emotion, a reconciliation in musical form. Annie would later call it more of a prayer than a love song. It was written after we went through a really difficult time, she said. And things were finally okay again. That new context changed everything. Every lyric, every note was not just about love but saving it. It was a matter of standing at the edge of something that was falling apart and turning back. Even years later, Annie confessed that the song still sometimes made her cry. I still cry when I hear it, she confessed. In a surprising twist, though, this is not even her favorite John song. That distinction belongs to Perhaps Love, a duet with opera great Plácido Domingo, another profoundly exposed song. What's even more powerful is that Annie hasn't tried to rewrite their story. She tells it honestly, remembering the good and the painful in equal measure. Annie's song wasn't just a romantic ballad. It was a lifeline, written at a time when everything felt like it was slipping away. And though it belongs to the world now, for Annie, it still feels intimately hers, a symbol of a love that once was, and everything they lost. John Denver's rise to fame was meteoric. With songs like Take Me Home, Country Roads and Rocky Mountain High, he became the voice of 1970s America. But behind his public image as the gentle, nature-loving troubadour was a private life unraveling, and Annie was the one fading into the background. They married young, Annie was just 20, John only 23. The spotlight came quickly, and so did the pressures of touring, fame, and public expectations. Annie went from a quiet Minnesota college student to the wife of a superstar, expected to smile, support, and stay silent. I didn't know who I was anymore, Annie later admitted. I lost myself in his world. While the world saw a perfect couple, their connection slowly eroded. The letters and laughter were replaced by distance and silence. John was gone more often than he was home. The emotional bond that once came so naturally became harder to reach. In a candid 1983 interview, just a year after their divorce, John admitted how fame changed everything. I think my success had an effect on our relationship, he said. We started drifting apart. It wasn't just the time spent away, it was the emotional divide. They had both changed, grown up, but in different directions. Annie described it plainly. We were too young. Too immature to handle it. She never fought the divorce publicly. She could have aired their private struggles but chose not to. Instead, she carried the weight of their history in silence, for decades. But not everything stayed behind closed doors. There was one moment so dramatic, so surreal, that even fans questioned whether it was real. It was. During their final split, John Denver took a chainsaw to the bed they once shared. It wasn't a metaphor. It wasn't artistic expression. It was fury. And it was real. By the early 1980s, their marriage had crumbled into bitterness. One of the final sparks came over a disagreement about a group of trees on their Aspen property, trees that Annie allegedly had cut down without John's permission. For John, a man who adored nature and saw their home as sacred, it was the final straw. In a fit of heartbreak and rage, he stormed into the bedroom with a chainsaw and cut the bed in half. It was grief turned physical. For someone who usually expressed emotion through song, this was raw, unfiltered pain. He was symbolically, and literally, sawing his past in two. Annie watched it all happen. And for years, she never told anyone. It would be later confirmed by John himself. In his 1994 memoir Take Me Home, he revealed his darker side, admitting to emotional instability at the time of their breakup, to drinking, depression, and even violence in his relationships. The man the world knew on stage was genuine, but so was the troubled individual off stage. What's extraordinary is Annie's response. She didn't run to the tabloids. She didn't destroy his public image. She held on to that story for decades, until that podcast interview in 2022. And even then, she didn't share it to shame him. She shared it because it was part of the truth. Even with the chainsaw, even with the rage, she still speaks of John with affection. There's pain in her voice, yes, but also grace. That's what makes her story so powerful. She loved him. And in some quiet way, she still does. Even after all of it, the divorce, the heartache, the chainsaw, Annie never discarded John Denver's first love letter. She still has it stashed away in a drawer. Not on the wall. Not in a showcase. Simply hidden away quietly, like a section she never wanted to recall, regardless of how it was finished. It was that letter from their early days together, raw and full of hope, to be expected only from young love. John then was just a singer struggling to make a place in this world. Annie was that girl on his mind. He wrote to her as if she is all there is to living. For Annie, that letter isn't about nostalgia or regret. It's about remembering who they were, before the spotlight, before the fame, before everything got complicated. He loved me so much, she said softly in the interview, almost as if she was reminding herself. She doesn't read it often. Just knowing it's there is enough. But not all memories are tender. When asked what moment from her marriage still haunts her the most, she didn't hesitate. It wasn't the arguments. It wasn't the media frenzy. It wasn't even the chainsaw. It was a single night in a restaurant, years after their divorce, when they ran into each other unexpectedly. She was with friends. He was with someone new. They exchanged a few polite words, nothing more. But when she got home, she found a voicemail from him. In it, John said seeing her had stirred up all the old feelings again. His voice cracked. He told her he still loved her. Annie never returned the call. Even now, decades later, her voice shakes when she talks about it. I wish I'd picked up the phone, she whispered. Just once. That message was one of the last things he ever said to her. Not long after, in 1997, John Denver died in a solo plane crash off the coast of California. The news devastated Annie. Though they hadn't been together in years, a part of her still felt like she lost the love of her life. And in some ways, she did.